Hello friends, welcome back. Okay, so our next move is to open about keyword arguments. So you can open it using the terminal saying open, or you can say about, and then here in Atom I have the list of it. And you could also look for it in the Finder if you wanted to. So about keyword arguments. So here we are, about keyword arguments. I'll close this file just to make it clean. And I'm going to press, I'm going to press Command and then the backslash key to get rid of the file structure while we're working in here. So I'm going to clear the terminal by pressing Command K, and then down here we can see that our about keyword arguments, we have line 10 as a mistake. So here we've got, this is the part that just tells you this is how Ruby Koans works, so you don't really need to understand how this works at this point. So keyword arguments here, method with keyword arguments. We've got 1 and then 2 is equal to 2. So let's see, test keyword arguments. Well, let's just throw this guy into our IRB panel. So we have method with keyword arguments. So what happens if we call that method with keyword arguments dot class? Interesting. I'm guessing it's going to be about keyword arguments. Oh, it's an array. Okay, so what happens is this renders out, and then it renders out to 1 and 2. And so if we have, 1, 2, like this, dot class, then it renders out to an array. So this method renders out to an array, and then that array we call dot class on it. And so that's why we get this array method. So let's double click here, and we'll save this as an array. So what happens if we render this out? Well, what we know is that it's going to become an array, but because we're passing in default, I guess, keyword arguments, it's going to be 1 and 2. That's my guess. So let's see what happens if we call it just naturally in IRB. Cool, 1, 2. Looks like we've got that right. Method with keyword arguments, 1 is equal to 1. So here we're changing it, and we're making the arguments in the keyword to be equal to 1. What happens here? My guess is that it's going to be 1, 2. Yeah, so what do you guys think? It looks like that's right, 1, 2. You notice I use the single and double quotes kind of interchangeably. That's fine. It's generally better to do single quotes all over your thing, because it just keeps your code cleaner. So for this one, I'm just going to do single quotes in the string, unless there's a reason to do double quotes. And so here, if we make 2 is equal to 2, what's that going to render out? I think that it's going to render out, it's going to return a method with 1, and then because 2 is being set as the key value pair, I think that it's going to be a method of 1 and 2. And if we run this in the REPL, we should be able to see 1, 2. So that's probably going to be right. So yeah, let's run the rake task just to see how we're doing. Okay, cool. So now we're on line 21. So that tells me that this is all correct because the rake, we've been able to pass the test. So let's move on. So method with keyword arguments with mandatory arguments. So 1, 2, and 3. So it looks like these provide you with keyword arguments that aren't mandatory. So 1, 2, 3. So, well, the best thing we can do is just throw this into our REPL, and then it just says, what happens if we call this method a method with mandatory arguments? So this is probably going to be an argument error, because 1 needs to be passed in, and because nothing is being passed in, it would look like this if it were passed in, or it would look like that if it were passed in. Maybe like that. But because there's nothing being passed in, I think that we're going to get what's called an argument error. Cool. And so what happens if we call that? Yep, argument error. And so, yeah, it's going to say, well, we could actually do this. Exception is equal to assert raise. So what happens if we call exception? Exception's nil dot message. Undefined method message for nil class. Interesting. So yeah, I'm just going to save my work over here and run rake. And then we have on line 24 is our problem. So we're getting it incorrect here. Expected wrong number of arguments to match and underscore here. So for some reason, wrong number of arguments isn't passing in there. So we just want to pass in this string. It could be this or given 0 expected 1. We'll remember that because this is a regular expression. All it has to do is match. So if we save our work here and we run our rake task again, we should be complete with that one. Okay, cool. So we've moved on to about constants, which is a different file. And so here in about keyword arguments, we're complete. Let's just check out this last comment. So think about it. Keyword arguments always have a default value, making them optional to the caller. Cool. Keyword arguments always have a default value, making them optional to a caller. Keyword arguments. I guess these are keyword arguments where you pass in key value pairs. And then if you don't use keyword arguments, you're just passing in parameters, which don't have a default value, and then you get your argument errors. So yeah, I kind of learned something about that. It almost seems better to use these. I wonder what the difference between keyword arguments and default values for parameters is. But that might be outside the scope of this one. But anyways, we've passed this one, so I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next lesson.